Welcome back, and for Ubisoft, they've already jumped back into the first major news cycle of 2024, and much like their previous splashes, this has nothing to do with one of their games either receiving positive reception or just turning into a meme. No, this is much more rudimentary and potentially destructive, and the efforts of their latest faux pas is currently resonating throughout the gaming industry, even bringing down some criticism from both Larian Studios and CDPR. This is LtBuzzLitebeer, and we're going to get into all of this in just a moment, but just in case you aren't yet a subscriber, consider hitting that sub button and ringing the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Likes, comments, shares are of course always appreciated. Let's find out what Ubisoft has done this time. So, when it comes to Ubisoft, these days, they seem to make headlines as much for their business blunders as they do for making actual video games. Back in December 2021, Ubisoft led the charge for developers to enter the NFT sweepstakes, unveiling their NFT digits and the Quartz program. Ghost Recon was the first title to see these individually numbered cosmetics being sold in Marketplace, and as expected, gamers didn't take to this at all. There was overwhelmingly negative reactions to the program, even venturing into aggressive actions towards Ubisoft, who ultimately failed at their pioneering NFT blockchain journey, but not before they rolled out one Mr. Nicholas Poward, VP of Ubisoft's Strategic Innovations Lab, who tried his best to convince gamers these NFTs were all for them and they were super beneficial, going so far as to say that players didn't yet understand the concept and how great it could all be. But when pressed on the positives, Poward couldn't convincingly lay out any sort of argument to sway consumers. There's also been a rather lengthy and still ongoing sexual harassment investigation hanging over the French developer, with arrests being made as recently as October 2023, when 5 former Ubisoft executives were all arrested as part of this ongoing investigation. Now, this is the latest in a long line of allegations of workplace misconduct and, of course, statements by Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, mostly amounting to the normal corporate deflections, never outwardly admitting to the crime, but always striving to do better, along with pledges of full-scale investigations and restructurings within the corporation. Now, recently, Guillemot suggested that the misconduct arose from something he labeled as generational differences, with the new younger generation having, quote, different needs. But according to a 2020 internal Ubisoft survey, a staggering 25% of employees all experienced workplace misconduct. Point being, Ubisoft doesn't have the cleanest of reputations, and for gamers, they haven't garnered much goodwill towards this company. For every Prince of Persia, which is kind of an outlier for Ubi, garnering decent initial reception and reviews, scoring an 8 out of 10 over on IGN. Again, for every mild success they push out, there are 10 games that are just okay, but always seem to follow that familiar Ubisoft gaming formula. When you know, you know. Even their long-running franchises like Far Cry, Watch Dogs, and to a lesser degree, Assassin's Creed have all been lukewarm to downright freezing in terms of innovation and commercial success. Of course, this is translated into a barrage of press coverage, and for many people, Ubisoft is synonymous with gaming drama, which, if you're a developer, is not the public image you want to be carrying. And that public image is not going to be seeing any sort of rebound after this latest PR nightmare. Ubisoft exec says gamers need to get comfortable with, quote, not owning your games. Yeah, as if Prince of Persia wasn't enough of a talking point this week for Ubisoft, they reached into their Rolodex of corporate suits, pulled another name out, and sent them out to make some off-the-wall statements to the press, because even bad press is good press, at least for Ubisoft. This time, it is Philippe Tremblay, director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, making the headlines, quote, One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games, because why wouldn't we want to own what we pay for? He goes on to say that's the consumer shift that needs to happen. And of course, Tremblay wasn't done there, explaining that not owning a game doesn't mean you lose your progress and that you still keep the time you invested in what you've built, even though you don't have a physical copy to stick on your shelf, which is the way that gaming is actually trending these days. We've already seen this shift away from discs, collector's editions with codes sitting in the game case instead of a disc. And let's not mince words here. This is all about money, especially for these publishers. Reoccurring sales, less money invested in having discs printed, etc., etc. And Tremblay's comments are also another notch in the belt for Ubisoft making statements to gamers about what is best for them. You want this, you just don't know it yet. Or in the previous case of the Quartz program, you just don't understand this program and how great it could be. Now, I have the unique perspective of owning a ton of Ubisoft games, especially Assassin's Creed. I mean, I have them all. I've played and finished all of them. Yes, even Valhalla. And this is where Tremblay's comments will come back to bite him, because perhaps he didn't get the internal memo that Ubisoft is indeed shutting down games. Like in the past, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, Assassin's Creed Revelations, Brotherhood, and Liberation, even Assassin's Creed 2, which for many was the entrance to the mainstream for Assassin's Creed. Even that game has seen its online services sunsetted for Xbox. Just last month, Ubisoft made headlines when they announced that they were delisting and shutting down the servers for The Crew, making it unplayable once the changes were enacted. So, Tremblay seems to have not received the memo, because Ubisoft is 100% shutting down games that players have paid money for, and yes, they will be losing their saves, their time spent in-game, and even access to the game with or without a physical copy sitting on their shelf. Tremblay's comments were indeed so out there that they not only received responses from gamers, but other developers as well. GOG, in direct response to Ubisoft's "We know what's best for you" statement, countered back with a gut punch squarely aimed at the French developer. You should feel extremely comfortable with owning your games on GOG. They're DRM free. And when asked what DRM free meant, GOG posted a follow-up. Owning the things you buy, we don't believe in controlling you and your games. Here, you won't be locked out of titles you paid for or constantly asked to prove you own them. This is DRM-free gaming. Of course, the timing of CDPR's digital distribution platform makes it obvious they were taking a swipe at Ubisoft's statement. You also saw Swen, head of Larian, fire off a series of tweets quoting the IGN article outlining Ubisoft's stance on gamers getting comfortable with not owning their games. Quote, "Whatever the future of games look like, content will always be king. But it's going to be a lot harder to get good content if subscription becomes the dominant model and a select group gets to decide what goes to market and what not. Direct from developer to players is the way," which I completely agree with. Direct is the key. Vink then continued on. "Getting a board to okay a project fueled by idealism is almost impossible, and idealism needs room to exist, even if it can lead to disaster. Subscription models will always end up being cost-benefit analysis exercises intended to maximize profit. In such a world, by definition, the preference of the subscription service will determine what games get made. Trust me, you really don't want that." And to conclude Vink's final portion of this tweet, TLDR, you won't find our games on a subscription service. Even if I respect that for many developers, it presents an opportunity to make their game. I don't have an issue with that. I just want to make sure the other ecosystem doesn't die because it's valuable. Very interesting to see two industry heavyweights weighing in publicly on Ubisoft's latest claims. You've got GOG, which is CD Projekt Red, along with Vink from Larian Studios, which, if he had made these statements about a year ago, would have been largely ignored, but with the stratospheric success of Baldur's Gate 3, Larian's clout is at an all-time high. And of course, after a seriously rocky start, Cyberpunk 2077 has had their Phoenix moment and has risen from the ashes to elite status. And both of these made statements contrary to Ubisoft and Tremblay. Of course, this is par for the course when it comes to Ubisoft. Again, their ability to stir up drama outside of their game releases does just as much for their relevancy as their games themselves. But what this does is shine an even brighter spotlight on the ongoing clash between gamers and publishers. Who owns the game? Does the gamer own it if they purchased it? Will the publisher follow certain ethical guidelines or just pull the plug when the economics feel right? Make sure to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive those upload alerts. All my socials can be found in the video description. A huge thanks to the near 189,000 of you that have taken the plunge and hit subscribe. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.